All right, lads, the phone is recording. All right, so let's get this going. So yes, we are doing our Rogerian round table, a very rectangle table today, to be able to discuss the government shutdown and our different points for it. Starting out with Armando, what is your main point for it?
So the main point that I want to really divulge in terms of the government shutdown would mainly be the disruption of federal workforce and public services.
Okay.
So like according to CNBC, she mentioned it earlier too, anywhere between like 500,000 to 750,000 people would either be furloughed or just like laid off entirely. And essential personnel like air traffic controllers, border enforcement, etc. They may continue to work, but it's often without any sort of pay until the funding is restored. And some agencies like the IRFs or whatever the case may be, beyond mere are planning permanent layoffs beyond just regular furloughs, which could erode expertise and institutional capacity in the long term.
And in terms of the opposition, because in this discussion we all kind of necessarily agree that, not necessarily, but we all agree and to some point that government shutdown is, seen as a bad thing. But in terms of the opposition, the people who see it as a good thing, what would you say about that?
The people that see it as a good thing?
Or just like an opposition to your idea specifically.
Oh, like in terms of...
acknowledging them and stuff like that.
I haven't really thought about that, honestly, only because I'm part of the, there's a lot of people that are working that without salary, so it's kind of hard to really talk about it from a positive perspective.
I get you. I mean, not necessarily positive, but it definitely is something where like dealing with the opposition side. But I appreciate that main point. That way we can then lead into Mikkel. So Mikkel, how do you feel about your main point, acknowledging the opposition from your standpoint? How do you feel about it overall?
I think people might think the government shutdown is a good thing because they're brainwashed or because they just don't research stuff like they're supposed to. Like Armando said, people ain't getting paid. Everyone needs to get paid to survive. And, well, I feel bad for people who do work and don't get paid for it like they deserve.
Okay. And then, Naya, how do you feel about your main point, acknowledging the opposition from your main point and then also your point itself?
I feel like my main point would be Medicaid or Obamacare or whatever name is, coming to the American people to know that, that's serious. Like, that's not nothing that would be something that would heavily affect us as African Americans because, and I'm not trying to, be biased with it, but solely because that covers like our health care and that's how we, that's how, in other words, I don't know how to put it, but it's like we need that. That's essential for us. Like
in terms of like my acknowledgement for the opposition, it's like I understand the reasoning that a lot of people see for the government shutdown is to be able to, really discuss about how the upcoming finances are going to be dealt with in our country, so that way Congress can come to a conclusion about should we focus more on Medicaid and healthcare systems, or should we focus more on like privatizing and focusing on like the business aspect of everything, make sure that the funds for the government is being properly sent out to different sections of like military and everything. To me, I acknowledge that the fact that a lot of people see that as something where it's like, hey, we have to focus on this before we can move on to something else. But in my opinion, for my main point is that it's important to restart the government so that we can be able to really pay the people, as we all mentioned, who are not currently working. So that'll be my main point. And we all set our main points and we acknowledge opposition. Like we understand why it is important for a government shutdown. It happens, every fiscal year. It starts on the 1st of October for a fiscal year, 15th of October, I believe, is the government fiscal year reset. And, it's already happened twice within the past 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of those.
I believe it was 2018.
Yes. It's one of those things where, as we go on, it's like we need as a people to really come to a conclusion together so that way we can stop having this happen. So back to back in a sense. So we all acknowledge the fact that people understand that and wanting to pause it to really finalize that discussion. We can start out with you. What would be your points to be able to like help support your main point?
I just feel like if you can get the funding for the Medicaid instead of trying to like entirely cut it off. I'm not saying you have to, like throw everything toward Medicaid, because I'm sure it's other, you know what I'm saying, it's other stuff that needs to be done in the government as well. I just feel like y'all just need to, if you have too much funds right here, see how you can put that funds elsewhere for it to be productive, so we can still keep the Americans, like, still keep the Americans of the United States, like, pleased or, like, benefited in some type of way. It don't have to be the same way it is.
Make it an all-together thing instead of us versus them type of thing.
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say a compromise, if you will.
Yeah, a
Amongst
compromise.
everybody.
Yeah.
And in terms of your points, what would you say?
So we said 2 points.
Yeah, it can be 2 or more.
So I think the main one for me would be professionalizing shutdown preparedness. So to go in more in detail with it, mandate agencies to have robust continuity plans, cross training, and then mission critical staffing structures ready in advance, just in case for whatever reason. So with these shutdowns, we've had 2 within the past 6 years for whatever reason. If there's a third one in the near future or in the future altogether, we have a better idea or a better understanding of how to approach that in the future.
Okay.
And then another thing that I said would be reclassifying more positions as essential or create tiers of continuity. So like avoid blanket furloughs for employees that are crucial to long-term operations.
And then Mikkel, for your 2 or more main points about not just the solution, but also just how you overall feel about your standard point that you mentioned at the start.
The government I'm sure the government already has its own stocks and stuff, and stuff that makes them money passively. Why not just create some kind of thingy where it's like a place to put money where it'll grow over time, so the government workers will have to worry about not getting paid, because their paychecks will just come out of that money if the government gets shut down.
So you're saying kind of like a separate offshore, not offshore, but essentially like a separate funding where if something, kind of like an emergency fund, where something did happen, like, all right guys, we have to do government shutdown, instead of not paying anyone, we already allocated everyone's pay to this specific things. We know what everyone's getting paid. So now we have to lock them into like specific hours, I'm assuming.
I guess if the government shut down, no one's getting any hours,
But at the same time, people are getting out.
I was gonna say, there's still essential workers.
They're still workers, but they're not getting paid to work.
It's also because like the fact that a lot of people are under contract with these companies, so they can't necessarily break their contract and be like, all right, bye guys, it's government shutdown. That's why some people are being furloughed as well too, basically being put off until further notice.
Some of them even permanently.
I feel as if though the companies should have something in the contracts that states like what this would entail if this was to happen again.
Right, like a protection for the worker.
Yes, which is also piggybacking off of what you said when you was like, okay, we had one already, we're in another one. More than likely, it's going to be a third. And if it is to be a third, hopefully it's not. If it is to be a third,
and
know what I'm saying?
And we'll get to that once we mention like a solution that can bring us all together.
Focus on the needs of the people unfortunate instead of the fortunate. Yeah, less fortunate instead of the fortunate, basically. Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of like my 2 points, when it comes to it, it is a danger to have something where you're going to have people, as you mentioned, come to work but not necessarily put their full into it because they're not getting paid.
Right.
They don't know when they're getting paid. And especially with cybersecurity, it is very well known for keeping people over hours. And it's hard to track that overtime a lot of times, depending on which section you're in. And if you're in more of the white hat or red hat side where you have to, send out attacks or even to protect against attacks in more of a blue side defense, you're going to be in there for hours. And a lot of times it's one of those things where you can't just simply clock off. You're on call consistently. So if you're on call at home waiting for something to happen, but not actually being ready for it because you're not in work, that creates a danger. Not just to pay the individual, but to really protect the country. Because even though our military is still showing up, even though, everyone's still showing up, are they really showing out?
I was going to say, is the morale there?
Right. How do we have that clear, concise? How do we have where both sides win? And I feel like talking about the budget for Medicaid is important to know a maximum cap, so that way we don't dive over or dive into it too much.
Right.
And who is specifically getting it. I feel like with a lot of people, their main concern is Medicaid is like, well, what about the undocumented? What about the people who are coming in from, different countries needing aid? Are they also going to be able to do for Medicaid?
Right.
I feel like finding those specific standards that allow it to be like, you are a U.S. citizen, you filled out these papers, you did this, here's your Medicaid.
Right.
Trying to find that middle ground.
Finding that middle ground. So that way you can still invest in other aspects like military, like police, like localized government.
Right. I agree 100%. I was going to say, literally took the words right out of my mouth. Creating a space that's based out of respect and civility.
Mm-hmm.
You literally just took the words right out of my mouth.
So then what would you say is your solution that can really bring out all sides all together for it?
They need to find a solution as to how could we keep these same things going, but like if they was to have more restrictions or have more like limitations or more, like qualifications to where, just like you said, okay, if someone's coming out of country or someone's coming out, like, and they're coming in the U.S. for Medicaid to get assistance, okay, and then another, like, a regular U.S. citizen is coming in to get assistance, you have to have this, and that.
Right.
If you don't have this person has this, okay, you get the Medicaid. If you don't, that's not, the government's fault because of the fact that they have these regulations and these limitations. I feel like, and then with not getting paid, with the workers not getting paid, I just think, just like Mondo said earlier, we have had once before, another one now. If we have another one again, I feel like companies, big companies, major companies that, require a lot of people to work because they know, like, people are coming in, like, say airports. Mm-hmm. If they know people are coming in, because those people are mainly heavily affected by this because they're not getting paid.
Right. Armando, you said you had something.
Oh yeah, no. Just going back to what you were saying earlier, just creating a space that's based on respect and civility, especially amongst our political parties, because here recently we've become so divided, like especially
mm-hmm.
as a country, like we become so distant from one another. I think we should promote, like what I was saying, respect, civility, and the willingness to just be able to just listen to whatever anybody has to say, regardless of the party. And then I also believe that we should emphasize the bipartisan successes, like in general.
Okay.
My solution was just to ask the Republicans what they want, ask the Democrats what they want, do it both, but split it in half. So everyone gets some of what they want. Obviously, they're still not going to be happy because that's impossible, but it's better than nothing.
It'll be 2 weeks, and some people are still getting paid, some people aren't at all, and some people are just now getting paid. So it's definitely a
2
little
2 weeks delayed.
Yeah, it's a little different for everyone, but it seems like they're slowly figuring out. So that means if it's 2 weeks delayed, why is it 2 weeks if it could happen day one? So that's the thing about it. It's finding that solution that really brings it all together. And I feel like we all have pretty excellent points. But yeah, that's our discussion.